We are getting so close to the end of algebra that it's not even funny. So we are getting ready to start Unit 8, and we only have 9 units in algebra, so the end is in sight. So our next unit is talking about quadratics, specifically looking at quadratic equations. So we, for the past few weeks, have been working with polynomials. Something that looks like ax squared plus bx plus c. The only difference between the way that we write polynomials and the way that we write quadratics is quadratics are an equation, so they have an equal sign. Y equals this. When a quadratic is graphed, it creates a U-shaped curve called a parabola. And my calculator will actually graph parabolas for us. So I'm going to do the first one, y equals x squared plus 2x minus 5. Give me just a second to get my calculator open. Y equals x squared plus 2x minus 5. And if we press graph, I can see what the graph of that parabola would look like. So parabolas look like a U. That parabola was a little bit left of my y-axis, and it went a little bit under my x-axis. And my parabolas should be an exact copy of each other. They should be symmetrical. My picture's not awesome, but in ideal, that parabola should be symmetrical. If the a number, which is the number attached to the x, is positive, the parabola opens up like a smile. Positive, like a smile, goes up. If my a is negative, it opens down like a frown. And we can actually do that for us. So on your calculator, go to y equals, type your quadratic equation in, and press graph, and then sketch a rough picture of that. If you're having some issues with your window, let me know, because I know my regular 8th graders have messed them up. Go ahead and do that now and then resume the video. So we said that our parabolas are symmetrical. They have this line down the middle. That line is actually called the axis of symmetry, and it is a vertical line. Vertical meaning it goes up and down. That divides the U shape, that divides the parabola into two equal parts. The way that we find that formula, because it's vertical, it's going to be x equals, and then my formula is going to be negative b divided by 2a. So we're going to skip over the vertex part for just a second, and we're going to find our axis of symmetry for this. So my a number would be 1, my b number would be 8, my c number would be 15. So to find our axis of symmetry, it's x equals the negative b number, which was 8, divided by 2 times my a number, which is 1. So negative 8 divided by 2, which is 4. When you write what your axis of symmetry is, I want you to write x equals 4. And all that means is if I graph it, my calculator looks a little bit different. Give me a second. If I graph that, x squared plus 8x plus 15, and look at my graph where the x is equal to negative 4, right? Let me see if I can get my tracing going. Right there in the middle, that negative 4 line going up and down is what is splitting my parabola in half. While we talk about the axis of symmetry, we also want to talk about the vertex. My vertex is the turning point of the parabola, where it either goes from up to down or down to up. It's basically the tip of the curve. When my vertex is at the lowest point, it's called a minimum. We only have minimums on parabolas that are going up. This right here would be my minimum. When it's at the highest point, it's called a maximum. And we have maximums when parabolas are opening down. We can figure out the vertex by looking at the graph. But before we work on that, I actually want to work on actually solving it. So I have this equation, y equals x squared plus 8x plus 15. But we already said that our axis of symmetry is where x equals 4. So I'm going to take that information and we're going to plug it in. Oh, I'm sorry, that should be x equals -4. I'm sure by now you've already called me out on that. So I'm going to put -4 squared. Make sure that that -4 goes in parentheses so that my calculator uses it correctly. Times 8 times -4 plus 15. Because I don't want to pull up my calculator, I'm going to do some math in my head. 16 minus 32 plus 15. All of these are still y equals. If I do that math, y equals -1. So my vertex is where x is -4, y is -1. We're going to sketch it real quick, and then I'm going to pull it up on my calculator to double check. So I'm going to sketch, and I'm going to give myself my x and my y axis. We said our axis of symmetry is wherever x is -4, so I'm going to say that's about -4. And my vertex is -4, -1. So my vertex should be right, x equals -4, -4, -1. My A number is positive, so it's going up like a smile. That gives me, it's not a perfect sketch, but it gives me a pretty rough idea. And when I pull back up that graph, it is there. Mine might be a little fat, but it is pretty darn close to what the graph should look like. Let's do one more before I turn you loose. This one we're going to do completely without the calculator, and then we'll check ourselves. So my axis of symmetry is x equals, I'm going to go ahead and label my A number, B number, and C number. Some of us might prefer to do it this way. B equals 10, C equals -23. Either way is fine. So it is negative B divided by 2 times A. So -10 over -2, which is going to give me a +5. X equals 5. So if I have my graph, I can say 5 is right here-ish. X equals 5. I'm going to take that and I'm going to plug it back in. Y equals -x squared plus 10x minus 23. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can write a little bit better. We said that x was 5. So -5 squared plus 10 times 5 minus 23. Y is equal to -25. Notice that that negative did not go in the parentheses because it was a negative x squared. That negative stayed on the outside. The only time that the negative would go inside of the parentheses if my x number was actually negative. Plus 50 minus 23. So y is 2. So I'm going to have a point at 5, 2 over 5 up 2-ish. 5, 2. My A is negative, so I'm opening down like a frown. Something like that. So let's pull up our graph and let's double check it. Y equals negative, oops, Just kidding. Negative x squared plus 10x minus 23. There's my graph. We are golden. My maximum, I can actually trace it on here, and it will show me my max. Nope, maybe, if I can lock it, is at 5.2, which is where our calculation showed it to be. I want you to finish out 3 through 9. Let's get busy.